Welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, Pat and James discuss, do you have to meet every qualification to pitch for a job, grant, or your creative work? We also ask, are lists of qualifications merely a set of aspirations?
Pitching. Do you have to meet every qualification to pitch or apply? I do have thoughts on that. However, what's happened I got really busy with my day job and I tabled the grand experiment. Even though I got back into it mid-November, I'd get to the end of every week and just have 0 hours left I'd be working till 7 or 8 Friday, after a week of 10-hour days, and I just didn't have the time. So that being said, there's also an element of resistance in there as I work my way through the mind fuck of summarizing my life in writing and how that relates to describing a project in an interesting way. Uh, so I'm not a great example of somebody who's pitching a lot, but I do have thoughts.
Yeah, well, okay. So, and here's the question though, right?
Mhm.
So you are looking at stuff and it's feeling, I'm getting from this that you're feeling a little bogged down because there's a lot to do in order to effectively pitch for something, right?
Exactly.
And so one of the things about this is they put out, here are the qualifications that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Here are the
Okay.
things you
So
must meet.
to narrow down to the question, which is, do you have to meet every qualification? My knee-jerk
Yeah.
response is no, or it depends. So, for example, let's say it's not a grant thing. Let's say it's a job.
Right.
I would say you absolutely do not have to meet every qualification. Let's say they want somebody with 10 years experience and you have 7 years.
Mhm.
I just saw a post on LinkedIn about this, but I can't remember, anything except that was one of the examples they used. Um,
Mhm.
they're gonna get, if they only get people with 10 years who aren't as good a fit for the culture of wherever you're applying to, um, then let's call it the billboard test even, in that context, like applying for a job, say, a jobby job, or even a freelance gig.
Mhm.
If you have 7 years and you are the billboard baby for that organization, apply. Absolutely. That you will be more likely to get in than somebody with 11 years who has 0 connection or correspondence except for with the organization, except for the part that they
Mhm.
know how to do the job they're being asked to do. So especially with creative work, I think, you've gotta be upfront about what your history is. You would never say, "I've got 10," if you only have 7. But
Mhm.
most organizations, depending on what type of interviewing they do, they will be able to see if you're a good fit. I'm just reading this book on hiring actually for some reason.
Oh.
And there's a type of interviewing where you get them to say how they actually responded in the past to a situation that is part of the job. And you will get all of this information that you don't get if you say, are you good at making decisions at the last minute? Or, are you good at with customers? Do you know how to, what would you do if a customer was angry? That kind of stuff. And I'm not talking about retail, although it could be that. But so what I think is, yes, absolutely look at the qualifications. If there are some where you don't quite fit, but you want the job and you feel like you can do the job, then just remember that the people who do fit everything that's on paper for the organization might not fit the environment. And
Mhm.
there are also some very delusional people in the world who apply for stuff they have no experience in and
Right.
really no knowledge of, and you're competing against them too. So you might be the perfect person for this position, and if you just go by the letter of the qualification list, you're gonna they're gonna miss out on you, and you're gonna
Mhm.
miss out on them. So I would say, I think you
Yeah.
don't have to. How about you?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, there's the obvious ones, where they're looking for a college faculty
Yeah,
and you don't have an advanced degree.
yeah,
Uh, you can apply to those all day long and you're not going to make
yeah,
anything,
yeah,
right? But then there's the ones where they have a list of criteria. Here's the
Mm.
things that we're looking for. And to me, that almost feels like that's aspirational for them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in their dream world, they're going to find somebody who can
Right?
meet this list of
They
things.
want our unicorn, and it's, yeah, that's a good one. I love that,
Yeah.
aspirational for them. But because
And
who wouldn't? Yeah.
right, right. And
Yeah.
so, one way that you can think about it is, okay, so they're laying out their aspirations, but do I feel like I can do this job, or do I feel like, the thing I want to submit, whatever it is really good and a good fit for what these people basically want, then absolutely, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, if they want 10 years, and even if you've only got like 3,
Yeah.
I'm gonna still say send it, go,
Yeah.
give it a try. Um, you know, and then the other piece of this too is that there's a lot of now in the creative world, this is nothing new, but it constantly shifts and evolves and change. The beauty contest stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
So are you an art?
bestseller. Yeah.
Right. So are you an artist who, what galleries are you in? Right?
Mhm.
What museums are you in? Actor, what, roles have you played? What are the big movies you've done? As a writer, New York Times bestseller, big awards, all that kind of stuff. And the interesting thing is that you will get a lot of people who really pad out what they've done
Yeah.
to be able to hit those kinds of credential qualifications.
Yeah.
And so I think you need to be very creative, very honest, but very creative about how you present yourself so
Mhm.
that you can, it's like I clean up nice, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah, I agree.
yeah, and then, put your best foot forward, but I don't think you should let that stop you, right?
Yeah.
So if they're saying we need somebody who's had all of these, and often very subjective kinds of credentials,
Mm.
um, that's who we're looking for. Figure out a way to look like that without being dishonest,
Mhm.
right? And yeah, go for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. I I I don't think credentials, just the way I think about credentials, I don't feel that they're that subjective. If they want a postgraduate degree,
Well,
that's not.
I mean, specifically subjective credentials,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So, my book became a bestseller
Oh, I
is kind
see.
of subjective,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially when you figure out, the New York Times has an algorithm to figure out how they're going to do. So there's books
Right.
that sell more than what's on their list,
I
but
getcha.
they don't make their list kind of things.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying now. Yes, I agree in that case. And I think also, the other thing I was thinking about, you know, do you have to meet every qualification to pitch or apply, is that really, especially if it's for a position somewhere, whether it's, on a board or in an organization or whatever, what you're trying to get to with your application or your pitch, trying to get to the interview. You're not
Right.
necessarily, you don't need to think of it as trying to get the job or the position, or I mean, they don't really do interviews for residencies and grants and stuff like that. It's a much more rigid system, but for a lot of stuff, you're just really trying to get a face to face. And
Right.
in that way, if you if you have a decent enough application or pitch or history or whatever, um, that you can get them to say, "You know what? They don't quite meet it, but let's talk to this person anyway." Like, I used to work in, I forget what they call 'em, but it was like a firm that helps organizations, a staffing firm,
Yeah.
basically.
Like a
That help
headhunter
Yeah,
kind of.
headhunter. It was called Holloway Schultz, and it was, I think, my first job after high school, and, or my second, I don't know. Anyway, they were very creative about not about trying to force anyone into a position they weren't right for. What they were creative about was understanding the person. They were really good at interviewing. Sometimes people would be in there for a full day for an
Wow.
executive level position,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
getting talked to by 3 or 4 people, having all kinds of scenarios, like, just they wanted to find the right person for the right organization, And
Hmm.
so there's this long process after your pitch lands wherever it's pitching, wherever it's landing, I mean, that you have the opportunity either to show that you're a really good fit or to look at it and say, they're thinking you're not right, you're thinking they're not right. That can happen too. But either way, it's not always the end goal is to get the yes, you're hired. It's the end goal might be, or the interim goal is to get the yes, we'd like to talk to you.
Right. Right. Yeah, foot in the door. So it's not about I'm going to get the job with this thing right now. I'm going to just get the interview.
Yeah.
And then and think of it more in terms of the step
Yeah.
as opposed to the end result.
That's how I see it, I think. And that's been true for me because although I don't consider myself like a somebody who lights up the room or anything, in interviews, it's really easy to talk about what they need and
Mhm.
what in your history, allows you to supply what they need to be good at it, and
Right.
that's kind of like a sales thing in some ways, but sales is really just a conversation where you give
Mhm.
enough information to let the person decide if you fill their needs or if you don't fill their needs or if your product does, if it's actually a product. So, it's just an extra step, and there might be something in there. I mean, it's also related to who you know. So you might have a semi fit in terms of well, the qualifications that they want, but then somebody in the organization that gets you in the door. But then you still have to take it to the next step is the offer. So,
Right.
so yeah, I do see it as what's the word? Incremental, it's one of
Right.
those things with milestones. Did I get to at least talk to somebody? And then on and on and on.
Okay. I think that's good.
Oh yeah, that was
I
fast. I
think
was
that's
I
good.
I was lecturing. Okay.
No, no, I was gonna as the wrap up, I think
Yeah,
there's definitely those credentials you gotta have in
yeah,
certain circumstances. If it requires a degree and you don't have the degree, then no.
yeah,
But then there's very, very subjective credentials or criteria.
yeah.
And in that case, I think we're kind of agree that, yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Give
And
it a
there's
shot.
the criteria that are the nice to haves, and like you say, they put everything in there because why not? I would.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say don't let the nice to haves, if you don't have them, see if you can figure out which ones are the nice to haves, and then, express interest in getting trained in that area or, in training yourself in that area. Show a history of having taken courses and being active in actually developing your own skills. And I think most organizations that are good hiring practices will give you some consideration.
Yeah, yeah. And part of being a creative is using your creative self
Yeah,
to say, I'm a little bit different. I've got something unique.
yeah.
Cool. All right.
Oh, all right.
Thanks for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. We'd love to hear how we're doing, so please leave a comment, join our chat page, or send us an email at giftedunderachievers@substack.com. We're also available on Spotify, iTunes, and anywhere else you like to get your podcast. Thanks for listening, and have an awesome day.